Thank you. Thank you very much for long introduction, and I don't think it's so important, but it goes up to you. And I'm happy to be back or to have a second opportunity at the end of this year to meet people who believe that culture matters, culture is important, and the world may be more cultural than it was or than we mostly see in our media. The topic I have been invited to speak about, I think, is timely. It's 21st century, but what is the most important is the content. I think that 21st century should be more human, less conflictual, less inhuman than the 20th century. And culture can help. Cultures may make a difference. I'm sure that the European story and European history is one of the most inspirational out of the world to show how humanity is important for our daily lives and conditions. That the European experience may help to change the world for better time, for more peace and more stability, not as we had in 20th century during, for example, Cold War time, because it was like rather Cold War type stability, but what we have now at the end of 20th century and currently, colleagues from Serbia are coming and Serbia is going to be invited today to start negotiations. This is something which speaks clearly about 21st century issue for Europe and for the world. I want to say why Institute for Cultural Diplomacy has important mission to offer in the world of today, and why culture matters. T.S. Eliot said, culture is on the top of values. Economy is necessity, but culture gives sense to human relations. And I think it speaks about the need of daily breads for everybody, but also for the sense of living and sense of relations, which is important for everybody. European roots are deep and old, and they combine, since ancient time, Hellenic culture, Roman law of nations, Jus Gentium, but also Judeo-Christian religion and cultures in interaction with contribution of Islam. And if we look to the history, there were many repeated periods of peace, but rather appeasement or periods or pauses between wars. Europe living in peace and prosperity was a dream, and we've seen many failures. There were more wars than periods of peace. On the other side, globalization was always promoted by European nations, migrations, languages. That's why English became lingua franca, and French is used globally, and Spanish, Portuguese. Whether conflict or balance or unity in future depends on the relation between human interests and human values. Conflict comes when human interests are put over human values and respect to others, respect to rules. Balance comes with interest in respectful relation to rules. But unity comes when common interests are based on common values and rules. I think that the objective is to promote the third potential, which is realistic potential. It's not something only wishful, because when we look to our current situation, I think Europe is an example. And I think the decisive criterion or decisive moment comes when human dignity for everybody and everywhere is put as a goal, as a criterion, and it brings then balance and unity. not only balance, but even unity. There were different moments and models in the history where peace and stability was brought, for example, by hegemon. 19th century started with the Napoleonic wars and conquest. And this was about kind of stability, but of course not acceptable, not sustainable, replaced after 1815, after Congress of Vienna, by balance of powers. Business as usual, balance of powers, quo adhere oppressed, you know it from the international relations. But it didn't work, and it was, of course, something what Europe knew very well. 20th century was called by many, or by some, very specific name was used by Ossip Mandelstam, century of wolves. Century of wolves. World wars started in Europe, and they became world, global. Just imagine, 100 years ago, precisely, December, Christmas, 1913, there was peace, good relations between cousins as emperors and kings and queens. Currencies were exchangeable, frontiers were crossable. But then, a year later, summer 1914, La Grande Guerre started. It was called Great War. But only second was then really major by all measures, even bigger and more inhuman. And then we got the third one called Cold War. So why I say it? Because there was also quest to bring new unity and new stability under ideologies. One proponent was Hitler, another one was Stalin. So the stability based on ideology is not for human dignity, but against human dignity. So only after then we really got to the point when the reconciliation and integration started in 1950 with the coal and steel community. Very simple but very logical step towards connection, combination, and integration of both interests and basic human values. And here I would like to commend and to memorize Konrad Adenauer here in Berlin, where unity of Berlin and unity of Germany and unity of Europe comes together, because he said that Europe united was dream of a few, desire of many, and now necessity for all. Dream, desire, and necessity. And I think this is still valid and very important for countries in and out. So Europe became power by attraction, soft power, because so many countries adhere to this project, so many countries cooperate with, so many countries even try to get inspiration from. And enlargement got community from 6 to 28 with the potential and homework to grow further. And I think that the best narrative for Europe, for unity, is unity in diversity. Because diversity here is respected and recognized as constructional and constitutional element, not as a problem, but as a definition of a complement. I've heard several messages from this morning, and here unity in diversity calls for special role of universities. They can teach and learn people to live together in diversity, but actually in one community. Because unity in diversity is global, universal, human principle. It's not Eurocentric. We have, for example, in the Union 24 official languages. Is it a problem? Is it a bubble tower? No. It's something what we have to respect, because we need to build community of citizens, not visitors, not tourists, a union of people. And from cultural and legal point of view, linguistic respect is a must. So are the costs of this arrangement too heavy, too high? I don't think so. If we compare conflictual past, if we compare loss of cultures, if we want to become melting pot, I don't think so. So why I mention it? Because there are sometimes over-critical remarks or points or positions towards the complexity of European integration. Unity based on universal values is a must, because interests will exist. We have to pursue them, but we have to combine values and interests, not in antagonism or conflict, but interests based on values. Is peace our interest? Yes, it is, but it must be based on freedom and justice. Peace without freedom and without justice is not peace. Europe is seen, and it is historically, cradle of democracy. It started here. Europe brought to the world such realities like university, Olympic movement, many popular global sports, law of nations, international law, concept of state sovereignty and international law. And therefore, I think it speaks by itself that bringing the best out of our cultures is both interest of Europe and also acceptance in the world of today. And one last, I want to mention, contribution of Europe was the concept of human dignity. Human dignity as a dignity of person with inviolable and undeniable rights. This is embodied in many constitutions, in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is the first value, also according to European treaties, and as I said, goal and criterion of our policies. And here, why this is so important, because it is actually the defining point for the 21st century, if it is to become more human, more peaceful, and filled by more solidarity. Actually, what happened after 50s in Europe was a moral revolution, which is not done forever, but it followed the road of reconciliation towards peace and cooperation, and then towards integration, but not integration as absorption of newcomers or smaller, or assimilation, but integration as participation of equals on the same base, on the same project, under the same conditions. And this is about community of rules, which is always advantage for weaker, for poorer, for smaller. And actually it is mutual advantage. It is win-win philosophy. That's why it works, and that's why we need to care. It should stay so. It must be win-win also today and tomorrow. We can, and we already did a lot of harmonization for currency, for market, single market, for competitiveness and competition. But we need really, in a mutual sense, an advantage, a more social dimension, jobs creation, education, better education, in order to show our social face. And the third is sustainability, for example, in environmental aspects. We shouldn't compromise possibilities and resources of next generation. That crisis, which is reality of recent years, or the crisis connected with debts and finance, represents consumption more than creativity. That crisis means we should not consume what belongs to the next generation, to our kids. And here, allow me to say a few words about culture. Culture is not for harmonization. Schumann says it in the book Pour l'Europe very precisely, and I think it's a point where we have to be not only careful, but really constructive. Because Europe is cultural superpower. In terms of diversity, in terms of attractiveness, in terms of attracting tourism worldwide, it's really small scale or small space, but with a large scale of communication and cooperation in cultural terms. Culture is creative. And what is part of our homework is promotion of dialogue between cultures, dialogue between people. Because here we find added value, synergy, understanding, and answers towards future, towards our problems. And from multiculti, we rather should move towards intercultural competences in schools, relations, intercultural dialogue, interreligious dialogue. So here I see strong mission and role of the Institute, which also has on its mission very clear mentioning global peace and stability through intercultural relations and cooperation. This is a mission of such institutes like Goethe's Institute here of Germany, Alliance Française, British Council, Cervantes, and so many. In the European Commission, we've started or promoted cultural program cooperation on restoration, literature, architecture, music. Great program called Europe for Citizens, Culture and Citizenship, first time connected together, European capitals of culture, because Europe is more community of democratic cultures and democratic countries. Schumann and Adenauer were a man of culture. Unity is a permanent challenge, like living in peace. It's rather process, not status quo. It's not granted, it's not here forever. European Union resembles, in my mind, construction of people who can be adapted, readapted, reformed, and should be, but must be loyal to its basic values and principles. It doesn't have anything better, although it's not perfect. It's like Churchill and democracy. Democracy is not perfect, but we didn't find anything better. The role of Europe as soft power is oriented towards internal space, but also towards external. Internally, it is about consolidation. Today, our prime ministers, presidents agreed on banking union for European monetary union, for economic and monetary union. This is about consolidation of measures or instruments. I think that the answer in principle is not over centralization or centralization per se, but subsidiarity, which has different levels of response, but speaks about freedom and responsibility. We need to renew our credibility, to be more result-oriented, more on citizens' agenda, respecting our own rules. And enlargement should continue. Croatia is in. From this year on, Serbia will start negotiations soon, and other countries, I think, will follow. An external homework is cooperation, assistance, solidarity. People in Ukraine use European flags to protest. Their desire, they would love to join, to see more independence, more freedom, more justice. Europe is seen as the answer, as the instrument towards such goals. I think that forms of similar cooperation are growing in the world, specifically in Africa or in some parts of other continents. And that's good that Europe inspires. Europe is not now a picture which is negative, but rather calling for cooperation and even for deeper integration. And because I spent some years, important years, I think, as educational commissioner, I want to say that major priority I see more and more as politician, as father, is education, education, education. Because it helps in all dimensions we need to follow and grow. In citizenship, culture, sense of values, but also in social inclusion, in living together, not existing only together, parallelly. And also in employability, bringing sense of initiative and innovation. Actually, European Union is political innovation per se. And great example in this sense is Erasmus program, famous, known, getting the name from Erasmus Desiderius Rotterdamus, which speaks that Europe needs to find more openness via education. And openness is a strength, it's not weakness or just something. Generation Erasmus is a great investment for future. Erasmus Mundus, I think, is one of the, or my personal view, is the best global educational program. And in this way, I think that Europe becomes again protagonist of humanity, togetherness, solidarity. Conclusions. 20th century is over. I recall then in 90s 2 messages. I mentioned them recently in Brussels from Francis Fukuyama and Samuel Huntington. One is on end of history and overall victory of liberal democracies, which doesn't seem to be true. And then the second one is about necessity of civilizational clash. I don't think it's necessity as well. Struggle continues. And if there are dividing lines, this is not between cultures, between civilizations. This goes through human person, and it is between fanaticism on one side and respect to human dignity on the other side. And the more we learn and educate and do for human dignity, the less space remains for fanaticism, whether political, ideological, religious, atheistic, whatever. And I think that ICD may do a lot in this sense to eliminate space for fanaticism, intolerance, extremism. And again, the answer is openness, openness of hearts and minds, which is the role of education. Education is not oriented towards filling in the minds, but opening the minds. And heart is about empathy, sympathy, solidarity, human love and togetherness. In 21st century, more peace and stability is possible, important and needed. Conflicts are not necessary, not fatalistic. Balance of power is not enough for peace. And unity of mankind, again, as dream of few in the past, desire of many, becomes necessity for all. We will have a better century if there is more humanity and solidarity. And I believe that ICD, all participants, people who understand the importance of culture will contribute the 21st century becomes a better time for people. Thank you.